You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
I'll tear your soul apart.
Jesus Christ!
No, it's not.
Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Fun, but in no sense civilized.
But now we've got to talk about the killers. Despite our claim of spoilers before, we've been really good to try to hide talking about the killers prior to up to this point, but we really do need to talk about them now. I made this point prior to us recording, and this is one that I've actually told people because I discovered this when I was doing my re-binge. Every single killer in the entire franchise, I don't know if this was deliberate on the part of Kevin Williamson or not, but each of them is kind of a satirical portrait or caricature of white privilege. Every single one kind of represents a certain type of dichotomy of people who feel like they're above everyone else, and so they feel that the only way they can feel superior is, of course, to pretty much kill them in order to, because let's face it, nothing says I own you then I kill you. When you go through the list, I mean, of course, the first one are basically two kids who are, for all intents and purposes, neglected, very obviously middle upper class youth. Because let's face it, look at Stu's house, and look at them. You could definitely tell they're not left wanting.
Billy Loomis owns a cellular telephone, so therefore.
And honestly, this is the reason why I love that Mrs. Loomis was the killer in the second one. She is kind of like the flip side of the coin, where she represents parents who can't come to terms with the fact that they were shitty parents. Yeah. And they refuse to accept responsibility for their shortcomings. And because I love that Sidney calls her out.
You don't know what it is to be a mother, to raise a child and teach him and guide him and abandon him.
If Billy's mother had taken him with her when she left, none of this would have happened.
Yep.
Never really kind of wonder why the hell Billy's dad slept around. I mean, Billy's dad, of course, any asshole sleeps around his wife is an asshole. But I mean, given the fact that that Mrs. Loomis obviously has homicidal tendencies, I'm terrified to wonder what she was like, A, as a mother, and B, as a wife.
I think he really was just an asshole, because if Sydney points out in Scream 2 that, oh no, this is her who lost a lot of weight and some work done. So she may not have been the most beautiful. She might have become that very stereotypical housewife that wasn't exciting to him anymore. And I mean, to me, as much as I hate this answer, but I think it's the most boring answer in the world, is the most simple one, that he just is that. They were so stereotypical. He was that guy that just needed something exciting. And
and given what we find out later on about Maureen Prescott, nothing's more exciting than someone who was in Hollywood, had a glamorous life. And I mean, and you do really feel bad for Sydney's dad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he does seem like a really nice guy, nice person, but simultaneously though, but this all leads into the one of the major problems that with Scream 3 that you really can't shy away from, the idea that having the experience that she had in Hollywood immediately made her insatiable. The idea that she became just an insatiable nymphomaniac because of her experiences in Hollywood.
I didn't read it that way. To me, it felt like it was the opposite. She was abused and she left, she got out, she went back to the small town. But someone who had a taste of the life, and not that, being abused, but I was someone that held people's attention, even though it was a very toxic, bad kind of attention. Mm-hmm. She was in a spotlight, and now she's in this small town that every day is exactly the same. It's almost like how Gail Weathers gets really bored in this town. And I think that was her way of trying to make drama again and trying to feel the affection,
like the center of attention again.
Feel, yeah, that I still got it. I'm still worthy of this attention. And so I think it was more of that, not necessarily.
Okay, that really does change everything. Thank you for that. We're hearing all this from the mouth of Roman Bridger,
right?
Yeah, and of course he's gonna mold the story based on the way he feels the way it's told. It's the I, Tanya scenario. It's the unreliable narrator.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of thing.
Wow, talk about white privilege or masculine privilege with Roman.
You're a Hollywood director.
All he wants to do is take it out on the one person who had nothing to do with any of it. Like, if he had reached out to Sydney, it could have been a completely different relationship. I bet she would have been so happy to be like, oh, I have family that I can connect with. You know, sure, the mom was an asshole who shut him out, and I hate Maureen for all of that. But Sydney was the one person that had nothing to do with any of that and could have been his biggest ally.
Exactly. Sydney
takes it out on her.
Got unjustly punished for the rage of this person who, and I'm still going to say it, the fact that this guy, material wealth should not be a definitive metric for happiness, but in the end, you're still a high-end Hollywood director. Even when your movie gets shuttered, they're going to give you other gigs to compensate you for it. I mean,
a good life.
You're living a pretty damn good life, but ultimately, in the end, you still can't handle that mommy didn't love you. We all are trying to find some kind of identity in life, but here's the thing. What your past doesn't always have to dictate your future. You can always find your happiness elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious that this guy is willing to destroy so many people's lives. In a way, you can laugh at me all you want for this, but frankly, I think it's one of the greatest movies no one is talking about, even though they should. Roman is kind of a lot like Farley Flavors from Shock Treatment.
You lost your baby when you lost your balls. You lost your mind. You've lost your grip, so say bye-bye.
I think it comes down to you have this thing taken away from you, and so you have to assert your dominance and control anything you're able to control. Even though that Sydney was totally innocent, but he can control her. He's the director. He directs. All the other people he killed, they had nothing to do with anything, but he felt empowered, and he felt, I finally have the control that I've always wanted, and that's what he's taking out on him. I mean, to me, that's white privilege and masculine privilege. Is
no one likes having no one likes having the power taken away.
Yeah, and it might not, be as crazy drastic as killing people, but you're still gonna relish in getting handouts, basically getting treated a little bit different, even if you're like, well, I didn't do it on purpose. You're still benefiting from it, and so you're still going those venues.
You know, the sickest part of all is if Roman had survived at the end of Scream 3, if he had gotten arrested, he probably would have gotten off maybe about a year in jail, something like that. That's the sick part, is that he probably would have gotten like a slap on the wrist. In the grand scheme of things. That's the sick part. He would have made a movie
about it. He would have gotten a movie deal about it.
He would have gotten a movie deal. He would have been a better off than he would have got in. So it's a really damn good thing Dewey shot him in the head.
Shoot him in the head!
You actually make I'm really glad you brought that point up. It does really kind of reinforce the thing, because again, here he is. He's a Hollywood director, but the one thing he has no control over is the one thing that was deprived of him, that someone else made the choice of saying, fuck you, you're not my son, get away. And here he is trying to own that. He's like saying, well, if I can't have you, no one can. And it has been said, part of the reason why some serial killers, Silence of the Lambs even pointed this out, part of the reason a lot of times serial killers continue on after their first one is that they get the taste of when you get the taste and you become almost godlike. And it's one thing that Billy Loomis killed someone, but let's face it, when you can whisper in someone's ear and have them do it for you, that's real godlike power right there. After probably the events of the first one, the second one, he was probably like, oh man, now I got to get into the driver's seat. Now this is looking like fun. I got to do this.
It's like you get revenge. You never feel fulfilled. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the past. So he got to convince these people to do these horrific things, but it still didn't change his pain. It didn't change anything about him. So now he's like, okay, well, now if I do it.
Sydney is just the apex of call out, because I love the exchange she has with Roman, where she's like going, listen, I've heard this shit before. You know why people do it this? They just fucking choose to.
Yeah.
There's no one's fault but yourself. You made the choice saying, I'm going to kill people.
Well, that's also a really wonderful meta line that kind of goes back to the original, making fun at all the people who boycott these films. Like, oh, the movies are making, it's all the violence in games.
Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
You can't blame all these outside pressures. People kill people because they choose to. I mean, look at how many of us are diehard horror fans. We're not going around killing people.
No.
No. In fact, I know a lot of horror fans that are not true crime fans because they don't like the realistic. I mean, there's plenty of us like me that are both, but I know a lot of people that empathy is too great. And it's like, no, it needs to stay fictional for me. So that's why another reason I love that line is it's very much just kind of calling out the people, the MPAA and everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And look at both of us. I mean, if you really had to tell me what kind of horror movies I like cheap grindhouse horror because it's so ridiculous that you can never mistake it for reality. That's why Frank Henenlotter is one of my favorite filmmakers, because Basket Case is complete nonsense, but my God, is it entertaining? Frankenhooker, come on.
Yes.
I think it's part of the reason why I gravitated to horror so much, is because the great horror fans I've encountered are ones who understand if it's good, it's fine. But sometimes when it's bad, it can be better.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times. And the ones who acknowledge that, then you're going to have great times with them, because the kind of horror fans that that you can just have a six pack with and just sit down and watch like even the worst of the Friday the 13th franchise.
Well, it's a great line that one of the podcast Shockwaves said that has stuck with me. Being a fan of horror means you're a fan of shit. Meaning you have to rifle through so much crap to find that gem that you have to appreciate the crap. And it's almost like a badge of honor to say, I can sit and watch the worst film in the Friday the 13th franchise and, and all this stuff. And that's where I think, that's you need that sense of humor. You can't, we're going to bring this back to the next topic. That's why I hate the whole idea of elevated horror.
Mm-hmm. Actually, funny enough, we should have brought that up when we talked about Scream 5. Yeah.
I hate the way fans make that like that's the only way to be. A lot of people that I'm seeing are disliking Scream 5 are saying they hate it because it's just for people who love elevated horror. And that's not what Scream is. This is a slasher. No, it's not. That's the whole point. No. It's not elevated horror. Yes, she got the last line saying, I still prefer the Babadook, but that was totally what they were making fun of in that opening scene when Ghostface is saying, sounds boring to me. And of course, I still love that, they brought up Jordan Peele and Mindy's like, yeah, of course he's great. We're not shitting on elevated horror, but we're shitting on the fact that so many people are gatekeeping and like, no, you have to be sophisticated in order to be good. It's like, no, there are two sides of the coin. I can love Us while I also love Slumber Party Massacre for different reasons, because there's different genres.
I can, I will happily say I finally watched Midsommar a couple months ago, and I freaking adored it. I loved it so hard. But that being said, though, Atanas Illich in his fine leather and his drill guitar dancing around feeds my soul in a way that Ari Aster on his best day just can't. Yeah. The people who really are avidly passionate, these are the same people who watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 and learn to love. And these are the people who now will watch Manos the Hands of Fate without Joel and the Bots at the bottom. These are the people who appreciate, and Joe Bob Briggs said it very beautifully when they screened Things in their third season on Last Drive-In. He pointed out every movie is a miracle.
Yeah.
The fact that any movie gets finished, gets distribution, and gets some kind of acknowledgement in one way or another. A movie like Things, it's an awful movie. It is a slog to get through. But the fact that it is being screened here now on The Last Drive-In means that it did something special that warrants its attention. Now, I suppose, I mean, this is all seems like it's going to be off topic, but really that's kind of the reason. Another reason why I love Scream 5 so much is that it's pointing out that, yeah, elevated horror is an extremely reductive term. And I actually feel like that term, and it kind of goes, well, what we were talking about before, I think we were before recording.
Psychological is what we brought up. Scream. Psychological thriller was the term.
Yeah. Well, because of course, Silence of the Lambs, when Silence of the Lambs took Best Picture, everyone was going like, "Oh, isn't that great? A horror film is taking Best Picture." It's like, yeah, then why are you calling it a psychological thriller?
Yeah, I don't like the term psychological thriller at all. In the same reason I don't like the term elevated horror, it's because the whole point of that term is to separate it from the uncool kids. Whereas the reason why horror is so great is there's so many different genres within it. And you don't have to love all of them. You have your camp. But what I think is so fascinating about the new Scream movie, at least in the wake of it, what I'm learning from the fans, depending on who loved it and who hated it, the people who hated it are kind of like the ones saying they hate elevated horror. And the reason they hate it is because those fans shit on our schlocky slasher films. And the problem is that it's like these two camps that think they're at war when it's like, really, we're all fans of this genre. And that's kind of what I liked about Scream 5 is they kind of brought that up. You don't have to hate one. You may dislike one, but it doesn't make it invalid.
I feel like the legacy of Scream isn't just about dissecting a genre, but it's also dissecting the audiences. That's why the reason why I love 4 is because I feel like it was going beyond commenting on horror and commenting on our culture. Around this point, I guess Instagram really, I think Instagram popped up on the scene.
Yeah, and Vine was really big. This is kind of the dawn of the social media superstar. This is where you had your YouTube stars.
People who didn't think you could make money on YouTube. Well, this is around the time when I think the writer's strike had just happened, and people didn't realize, oh, wait a minute, the internet is actually a money-making avenue. Yeah. And for a lot of people at home who have basically no talent whatsoever, realized they could probably make a killing on the internet just by doing basically nothing. I mean, let's face it, if the Kardashians can have like their 20th season in lieu of the fact that they have nothing to offer humanity whatsoever. Imagine what a freaking overzealous, bored, upper middle class kid can do with their cell phone.
One generation's tragedy is the next one's joke.
We're making jokes about 9/11 now.
It's true.
Think about that. There are a lot of kids now who weren't there when 9/11 happened.
I recently had that epiphany, literally just the other day. I think I looked up the actress Zendaya because I'm watching Euphoria, which I absolutely love. And it was just like, I wonder how old she is. She was born after that. And it's this idea that, oh my goodness, there are adults right now who weren't alive during that. So it's kind of the way we can make, I don't want to say make fun of, but the way we can talk so cavalier about Pearl Harbor, you know, and make movies about it that aren't even about it, but it's some kind of stupid love triangle romance set at Pearl Harbor because we, you know, weren't around for that. Who cares? And that's what's happening now with 9/11. I'm learning.
Yeah, the incidents in the first Scream movie happened in 1996. So a lot of these kids were not born around the time that happened. All they know about it is glamorized in movies and books, which, as we've seen, the Stab movies didn't exactly portray those events, because we all know Casey Becker was not taking a shower the night she died.
Yeah.
She was just casually having popcorn and watching a movie. She was not in a bathrobe.
Yeah, who, by the way, I was still also making popcorn while she was taking a shower.
Who the fuck does that?
I love
Robert
that.
Rodriguez. I love that Scream 4 acknowledged that it was Robert Rodriguez who directed it. I'm like going, Robert Rodriguez, I think shorts might have been a higher point for you than this. But yeah, because unfortunately all these kids know about this tragedy is glamorized in these oversexed. This is why I can't stand biopics for the most part. That's why I couldn't stand Bohemian Rhapsody, because I was like going, this is not the person that I feel like we need to know about. And that's why I love movies like I, Tonya, where they practically flat out attack you for even wanting to hear this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that Scream 4 actually calls out the fact that kids will never truly appreciate how painful tragedies are. And here you have the two kids wanting to be these celebrities because of the way they've been glamorized in popular culture.
Yeah, I mean, they host the whole Stabathon in the town that the murders actually happened. And there's so many times I watch it that I'm like, these kids are so dumb. Kids would not be that desensitized. But no, that's because they don't know about the murders. They know about the movie. And it's like this cool link that, and we're in Woodsboro. The fact they're having this huge party, this huge rager, while murders are even happening now. And they just can't connect it. And that's why I love those killers. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, at least, Texas Chainsaw and Psycho have the courtesy to be fiction based on fact.
Yes.
Yeah, at least they have that. But I mean, unfortunately, the one thing about the stab movies is that ultimately they all boil back to a real world tragedy. I mean, that happens. And yeah, I think the reason why 4 and 5 go hand in hand is that ultimately the same thing with the killer, with Richie and Amber in part 5, is that, again, they have that disconnect where they're more thinking about the movie meant so much to me. It's like going, oh, you mean the movie that came about because of the wanton death and destruction of innocent people?
Yeah.
It's like perspective, people, and they can't think beyond that. They want to just recreate a tragedy because it's their comfort food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, goes back to the privilege. They're not thinking about the actual pain they're causing people. They just want to feel spiritually fulfilled by their cheap and tawdry entertainment.
It was very timely. It was very well done. I think Richie might be one of my favorite killers. I think Jack Quaid just nailed that part. I
love Jack Quaid.
I've seen it now 4 times. And I feel like I still, every time he appears on screen, I don't think of him as the killer. I'm just like, Richie, everything he says, he's so adorable. But he does that turn so well.
Yeah, he really does.
Whereas, I watched the first Scream movie. Obviously, I love Billy Loomis. Skeet Ulrich is perfect. But you're still like, oh, that's the killer. That's the killer being killer.
That's the killer.
Something about Richie. Jack Quaid brings such a fun innocence to him that I just don't, and maybe it's still brand new.
And admittedly, though there was a part of me that was a little bit surprised about Richie, principally because Amber, I love the way they revealed Amber as one of the killers. That was such a great reveal. They did such a good job on that. And admittedly, I forget the actress's name, but she was in once. But she played one of the Manson family in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
And I like that they reveal her so early in that third act.
Yeah.
That you're so focused on her that you're thinking about Richie. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. There's a part of me still on that residual high from the first time I saw it, just because, Richie played me.
Yeah.
Richie played me because he was so damn likable. It was kind of the anti-Stu, because I will say this about Stu is like, Matthew Lillard is just good at playing so weird that he's like, he couldn't be anything else but a killer. But Richie is just so sweet. And so I
think a lot of people had guessed Richie pretty early on for the way Dewey did. Like, oh, the love interest. This makes sense. And that's what I had to remind people. I'm like, yeah, but Scream 2. When I was watching it for the first time, I immediately wanted it to be Richie. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. The love interest, we're coming back to the first one. But the whole time during it, I just keep thinking of Derek in Scream 2. And I'm like, maybe that's the red herring again.
Derek or Derek and, well, now we find out Detective Kincaid. So, so exactly. That's why when Dewey said it couldn't be, I was like, that was only just the once, dude. I mean, granted, one of the killers in Scream 4, as we discover, turned out to be the love interest of the killer.
Yep. Yeah.
So, which I did love that little twist that Rory Culkin wanted to be the new Randy, but it turned out, nope, he was the new Stu. And much like Stu, he got stabbed to death.
You were the idea, man.
I will say, I think this is the first time. I mean, obviously, we don't get enough of them being their true characters together because it's the whole mystery of whodunit. But it kind of seems like Richie and Amber actually cared about each other in some very weird, fucked up way. Like, it was definitely, I need you. But it never seemed like they were going to turn on each other. I get the feeling that they were both, there wasn't really one mastermind. They were kind of equals.
Yeah.
She
and I
had
think
the information. She's the one who knew about Billy Loomis being the dad. And he was kind of the one that I think knew how to go about this and make it happen. But yeah, it was like the first time that I felt like the killers were sort of on equal ground.
Yeah. Actually, now that you think about it, that is, you definitely don't see one of them like trying to screw the other one over or stab them to death. I mean, admittedly, I don't know if you're going to overtake the whole montage of Emma Roberts doing a full-blown self-inflicting, which I'm not going to lie, that sequence was amazing when she was doing the whole staging sequence where she was like self-inflicting wounds on herself. I mean, that whole sequence was incredible.
Yeah. Oh, it was so well done.
I love the fact that the killers of Scream 5 were these two fans who thought that they knew what was best, so much so that they felt that certain people should not survive.
Yeah. That was